All right, and we are live. And speaking of diversifying your brand, I did something courageous today. We're live not only on LinkedIn, but we're live on YouTube. And not only are we live on LinkedIn and YouTube, but we're live on Facebook.
Woohoo! Nice.
Yeah, so we're diversifying today.
Hitting that footprint.
Yes. so, welcome to SaaSy Saturday Live, where we're running on a little bit of a skeleton crew, at least for today. And so, kind of what we're going to be discussing is diversifying your brand. So, there's a lot of people that will, I don't even know if pigeonhole is the good word to use, but they will primarily focus on one media platform, such as LinkedIn. And so there's kind of a neglect of Facebook or Pinterest or Twitter or other areas like that. So, Eric, here's a question for you. Why would it be important, and what would the process be to figure out where you would want to diversify your brand?
Well, with any online presence, you have to have an awareness of your platform level strategy and a reality that if you go too hard on a particular platform, and I don't mean like hubris, I mean if you overemphasize a particular platform, then you are intrinsically endangering the value of what you can do because you're putting it in the hands of the platform to be deplatformed, and not even coming from a place of like cancel culture or any of the other crazy things that can happen, but even something as simple as like a technical compromise or a hack might cost you that. So the reality is that you must, and LinkedIn is super dangerous for this because it is such a niche specific experience that's like catered to, okay, this is your business personal brand, that what they've done is they've created a sort of monopoly on business personal brand. And you see people like vaguely diversifying by doing Twitter and by doing TikTok. And like I totally hear people like Eric saying, you know, TikTok has more engagement than Google at this point. So it's like it's a necessary choice. But I think like if I had to tie it all together, I would just say you must have a strategy that you think more about your brand is who a community knows you to be and counts on for a particular thing, and that ecosystem transcends any one platform at a particular time. And if that's where you're at, then you do have a personal brand. Otherwise, you just have a LinkedIn account.
Love it. Amir, what do you think?
I see a lot of creators diversifying as well, right? Across LinkedIn. LinkedIn is just one platform, right? I see Will or Todd. They've gone on to TikTok and they've gained a huge follower count, and they're recognized there as well. Yet other creators are on Twitter, and their audience recognizes them there. I'll keep it very brief. It's like Eric said, don't keep all your eggs in one basket. You never know when it might fall down, or it's we saw this happen very recently, right? Justin Michael's account was taken down. Reddit blocked him. All those pitchfork and everything, tar and feather on Reddit. That wasn't good. He was just helping out the community there, and some people took offense at that, and they just blocked him over there. His account got reported. He was blocked on LinkedIn for a day. But that's not good, for a platform to do that without any, rhyme or reason. And that could happen to anyone, right? So diversifying is a good thing, actually.
And I just, yeah, sorry, Josh.
Well, I was gonna say is I one thing that kind of perplexes me is it's been, speaking of a brand, and there's this kind of prevailing notion that, like, in the B2B space, as far as like marketing and advertising those brands, is professional, kind of stuffy, a little bit boring compared to like the B2C space. And so I'm over here on TikTok and I'm watching the B2B brands kind of go over there, but they're it's like they're still doing the same thing, where you're looking at it and going, well, this is still like, it's just regurgitated. It's kind of boring. But if you look at somebody like Todd, he is now going on TikTok, and he's taking that opportunity to create like skits and movie splices and kind of really be entertaining in the B2B space. Now, they do target like a lot of the B2C, but still, it's still a B2B company. And so, would we want to say when we diversify kind of our brand, do we want to be a little bit different when we're looking at other areas? And I asked this because Darren McKee made a post earlier where he says, it's been told that we're supposed to niche down. And he goes, I don't. Sometimes I talk about sales and marketing. Sometimes I talk about my kids. Sometimes I talk about, and so he gave a laundry list of things. And I thought about it and I said, well, you know what? I kind of do that too, because, I'm not Aamir and I have talked about being an expert the other day, but I don't consider myself an authority or experienced enough to really create a ton of content around marketing and sales. I do a little bit, but, sometimes I talk about autism. Sometimes I talk about, transitioning teachers. Sometimes I talk about, what I'm going through. And so, when is that a brand in itself as far as, having multiple things that you would talk about when somebody can't say, well, Josh talks about this specifically, but talks about multiple things?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's as unique as you are. And the reality is, it's in the eye of your audience and your community and your tribe, and like really drilling down into what kind of an impact are you having in those people's lives. Like, to me, that's the real definition of what your brand is in their life, aside from just engaging with a particular piece of your content. How does knowing you change things for them? And like, I'm gonna embarrass the hell out of Aamir now, but like, the reality is that Aamir is a person who, if you cross paths with Aamir on one of these platforms, or even more than one, and you form an authentic connection with Aamir, you're gonna wake up one day with your life changed. It's not as simple. It's true, you are. And Aamir will connect you to an opportunity or to a person or to an ecosystem. But Aamir has this instinct that, like, I think a good word for it would be like force multiplier. And the reality is that not all brands are created equal in terms of impact. Like, so you might feel a visceral emotional connection. Like, I can give you a really good parallel example. Dale Dupree. Dale Dupree changes lives and like has this mission going at scale, and like is this very available, very authentic person who's the same in public as he is in private. He's out there leveraging what he's succeeded at to genuinely help others, while also authentically like looking right into the camera and saying like, this is my life's work and I need to get paid too. And there's absolute integrity there. But what you see from wall to wall with Dale Dupree is impact. You have people that he's empowering to make an impact that are in this like web and ecosystem that he's working with. And then you also have the impact of like, at a certain level, if you network enough, you can wind up with his cell phone number and just talk to the guy because he's a person. And like, the point is that they have this like, Aamir has this audience that's like whatever this big, but this impact that's like this big. Well, even a guy like Dale Dupree, I consider to be similar to Aamir in that like you see this like couple 100,000 LinkedIn followers, but the truth is that like Dale's out there doing like entire SKOs where like entire companies are learning how to kind of be authentic humans as salespeople and servants of their audience in a way that like you can see. What I guess I would say about it is you can see more similarities between Aamir and Dale Dupree than me and Dale Dupree, even though I actually kind of like probably more closely resemble Dale Dupree in terms of his walk of life. And that really has to do with the unique way that Aamir chose to diversify his brand, because like he's active in so many different wide-eyed places that like if, for example, Amir's LinkedIn disappeared tomorrow afternoon, he'd be pissed off and I would be too. But he would laugh because he's like, okay, whatever. That's like this one thing that I do. Whereas I think Dale would be like taking a serious hit if LinkedIn disappeared. He has a huge diverse footprint too, far outside of it, and I'm sure he'd regroup. But it's just a great example of like how LinkedIn can kind of become this like nucleus of what you're doing professionally and networking wise.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, there's somewhat of an exaggeration. So
Okay.
is what I'll say.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's an exaggeration at all, because I've even posted, when we make those posts about who we're grateful for, and Amir was one of the very first connections that I made that was like and I hate to say value, because I think no matter who the connection is, there is some value there, but he is one of the first ones, because I made this post on there where I was completely lost, and I was like, hey, my name is Josh. I'm a transitioning teacher, and I don't really know what I want to do, but I think I want to be a project manager. Are there any project managers out there that will connect with me? And of course, it was a terrible post because nobody, but Amir reached out to me, and we built this cadence up every Saturday where we met and just chatted. And so he was a way for me to kind of sometimes vent, sometimes joke, but talk through things that I was struggling with, provide that feedback. And there are sometimes, in this, we talk about getting wrapped up, and our identity gets wrapped up in our career. My name is Josh and I'm a teacher. And so it ends up to where we almost like, this is who I am. I'm a teacher and that's it. And so when we start to change that career, we kind of lose a part of ourselves. And then you're left wondering, oh, what am I going to do? Who am I? And so Amir was like, he didn't even realize this when I told him, but he was one of those people that I just needed somebody to talk to, because I was like hurting, and I was, here's a moment to be vulnerable, but I was hurting at the time, and I needed like, somebody that could help kind of lead me out of the fog, and Amir was able to provide that.
I appreciate that, my friend. I mean, see, so here's the thing. I mean, anyone can make an impact, right? You just need to have that attitude to do good, is what I'll say. Me and Eric, how we met was he was supporting me on the GTN games, and that's how we started interacting. And you form those bonds of relationships, right? Different circles, and there's no comparison. I mean, I don't really know Dale, but I know he's doing good. Darren's doing really well, and he's actually helping people with jobs. So I think that has a bigger impact per se. But as far as individualism is concerned, everyone is different, but you still form part of the same circles where you want to help others directly or indirectly, and that's what makes sense. And in as an example, I always built my networks, not just LinkedIn, right? There were other networks before, Facebook friends, and before that photography friends or whatever. So you build those relationships and go from there. So it's all long term, is what I'll say.
Yeah. You know,
Hey, Sarah.
hey Sarah, so glad you could join us today.
Hi, thanks for letting me pop in here really quick. I'm the newbie in the group, but I'm
Everybody's new.
well,
Yeah.
like for LinkedIn, I enjoy hearing your perspective and kind of soaking up these tips, because there's a lot of information out there, but trying to figure out which path to go with LinkedIn, and is it just about looking for a job? Is it about developing a brand? And so I appreciate hearing these perspectives and letting me be a fly on the wall a little bit.
No, you're good. Well, Eric, it's funny that you mentioned Dale Dupree, because, one of the questions that I had asked you and a couple others is like, hey, I want to, as I kind of close up season 1 of Empowering Her, I kind of want to reach out to, I want to keep the same train of thought, but I want to reach out to a different kind of like people to talk to, who is influential. And you mentioned Dale Dupree, and I go and I look, and the guy's got like 1 billion followers, and I thought, there's no way that he's going to respond to me because he's flooded with people. But you know what? I'm going to shoot my shot and see if he'll come on my podcast. And so, I messaged him, and I don't know, 20 minutes later, he sent me a message back. He's like, let's do it. Sounds great. And I was like, okay. But that empowered me to go, wait a minute. I'm just going to go ask other people too. This is amazing. And so, Yeah, so it's been a wild ride with LinkedIn, but we're talking about kind of diversifying. And so, Eric, when you go onto other platforms, say Twitter, or like I don't know if you go to like Pinterest or Instagram or other places like that, do you change what you're talking about or who you are based on the audience that you have on those different platforms?
So I'll give you a real crazy out of left field answer. I only use LinkedIn and Twitter. That's it. And for social media, and I only use them for work related stuff. I have a rule in my life, and I don't want to like strap on a foil helmet here, but social media is necessarily toxic. People don't have any sort of awareness of the forces that are being unleashed psychologically in them by social media and how unhealthy they actually become from it. But when you said this to me about like, how are you different? I'll give you an example. So before this life in the tech space a few years ago, I ran and grew junk removal businesses, and I had a footprint in my local networking and my local chamber of commerce and social media as myself, the person who had my own friends. And I had a very distinct firewall between me, the guy who had like a Facebook account, and me, who I had to be on LinkedIn or business Facebook or whatever. And so I first started to learn about like the different directions you can get pulled in, right? Well, at a certain point, I had 2 Instagram accounts, one for a company I was trying to start and one for myself personally. And it was during the beginning of the George Floyd protests. Well, the machine took a bet that one of my accounts was a woke black activist and my other account was a like far right white nationalist. And it began bombarding me with simultaneous messaging of both in like a really intense way. And I'm not kidding. There was an afternoon where I started receiving messaging encouraging my woke black person identity that it had decided I had, and my far right white person. It was giving me a location and a time to go commit violence against the other person as those 2 personas. And if you look up Cambridge Analytica and the fallout from all of that, those platforms are so despicable that they're willing to serve up riots on demand at a particular location. And why I'm making this point so pointedly isn't to turn it into politics or anything. It's to help people understand that you must think of social media as a casino that is on fire. Okay, like your community, your tribe, the impact that you want to have, all of that. And I include LinkedIn in this, by the way. They are run by mathematical algorithms. We like to talk about the algorithm, okay? Well, I'm not a data scientist, but I do have a pretty like deep awareness of how this stuff really works in the real world. And what it looks like is that conflict itself is the most likely driver of engagement. So there's an actual platform level incentive to create strife and conflict from a particular piece of content. The way I would explain it is, if you make a post on Facebook specifically that says, I love puppies, like I'm the puppy hugging society of America, right? The literal mechanics of that platform are such that it's not going to show that content to people who love puppies. You know who it's going to show it to? Cats that want to do a drive-by on puppies this afternoon. That's the first place it's going to go. And the reason is because it will have explosive initial engagement and it'll drive the algorithmic network effect that is their business model. Why I'm saying all of this is when you say like, oh, what person on what platform, you have to understand 2 things. You have to first understand who you really are to your audience in terms of your connection and your impact. And you can pull that from like, am I connected to these people on multiple platforms, through multiple channels, through dark social? Like, if I disappeared from, let's say, 3 platforms at once, could these people still find me, right? And if the answer is yes, well, like, that's your real audience. So keep that in your mind. Then keep in your mind the stupid platform, what it's saying you are, right? Like, when I look at my content on LinkedIn, I can always, when you talk about niching, I can tell how, based on who's commenting on things, how the platform chose to disseminate a particular piece of content based on its awareness of niching and stuff. And because I do so many weird different things on LinkedIn, I'll see the same thing. Like, my post will wind up in front of a particular group of people that I'm like, who? How did this come about? And like, the responses that it'll get will be kind of insane. And why I say all of that is, you've got to have a strategy here, and you've got to realize that these platforms are surfaces, and that like they're totally different than the humans that you're impacting, and see the difference and be able to conduct yourself accordingly.
All right. So what I'm hearing from you, Eric, is that you hate cats.
Yeah.
No, that's so that it's funny you mentioned that because it reminds me of they'll go, something matters, and then that will turn, something matters to me, and then that will turn into, well, obviously you don't support this, this, and this, and you don't like this, and you're like, that's not what I said at all. But it's that
Yes.
people crave that conflict.
So there's here's the thing. This has always gone on any social platform,
Yep.
even before Facebook, right?
Yep.
I think some stuff triggers people and makes them behave, and the smarter the algorithms got, the AI algorithms and all, the more they wanted to get engagement and reactions from people. And Eric, on the point, right? Um, I'm logging less to Facebook these days. It's mostly all LinkedIn. Um, who knows? LinkedIn might change with the I disagree stuff, and get you and me and Josh and Sarah triggered as well. You never know what's gonna happen, but that's the way this entire thing works. But what I do believe is, people who are essentially well balanced, and I don't mean mental balance or states of mind, but people who are respectful of others' opinions, religions, color doesn't matter. They will have a more balanced and nuanced approach towards talking to other people, and that's what matters in the long run.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of being triggered, any transitioning teachers out there that need help transitioning, Amir
No, I stopped. I stopped.
is willing to take on special projects.
I absolutely stopped helping. So, except for Sarah here, I was just talking about Sarah, and so Sarah, before this live, we were talking about job opportunities, and me and Eric were discussing something about about that attitude, and I mentioned you specifically that Sarah has that attitude, right? You got to start
Yeah,
somewhere.
girl, you have an attitude.
That's
A good
actually true. Amir, that's actually true.
It's a good attitude, and I like Sarah. So there you go. So that gets you to a lot of places and gives you success, rather than hey, I don't want to learn stuff. Hey, I don't want to do this. If I'm not getting 60K, I'm not taking the job. And all these hiring managers that we talk to, and Josh knows a bunch of people, Eric knows a bunch of people in the tech industry. I know some people, not too many, and they're all saying, okay, hold on. All these all of these posts are, we are going to be very careful with who we take on board or even talk to or interview. So that makes a difference.
Well, it's because, like, I mean, you can look at my profile and it says uh, marketing, like content creator at BDEX, and so there's that. Oh, he works at BDEX, so if he's out there, like they see who you work for, and that can bring that negative, publicity to a place of, I mean, it's so prevalent where we've seen so many posts about, hey, I am creating content, people are seeing it, they're getting curious about where I work, and this is creating like demand for the place of employment that I have. So and whether you agree or you disagree with it, I mean, it is the way it is. I mean, we can talk about teachers and whoever else get in trouble because they're on Facebook or other, ranting and raving, and they get called into the district office. But I mean, it is the way that you portray yourself. And so they, whenever they look at, they're going to go, is this person going to create a positive feeling towards our place of employment, or is it going to be a negative place or a negative feeling towards our place of employment? And that's why, I love Sarah, because she's always so like, she's like a high, I was going to say hype man, but I want to be like,
I mean, That's my nickname at that's my last principal. That's how I'm introduced. The hype girl. That's it. I don't know if I'm introduced to any other, anything else that's great, but that's it. I can be a hype girl for sure.
I like it. Because like Sarah's the type of person where you're like, it's been raining. Like I ruined my favorite pair of shoes. My puppy just ran off, and Sarah will come in and she's like, yeah, and you're like, okay, I just suddenly feel better. Like no matter what, this is fantastic.
So she's a Jocko Willink type.
Yeah.
It's only because I need it. Maybe it's more for myself. Those reminders of hang in there. I think it's more for me, but I think it's nice to see that. I think at first there was a discussion somewhere about the fluff and
good morning, Ricky.
Lurker. Listen, I've been lurking and seeing these walks and I'm obsessed. I want to see.
So what's happened? Hold on, let me see if I flip this, if everyone gets upside down. No, all right, modern technology sorted it out. So I didn't realize it's bloody daylight savings times kicked in. So this started 5:30 in the morning now, which means all my meetings that I've set up this week are really going to hurt.
I mean, is daylight savings time even necessary anymore?
No.
It's for golfers and lobbyists, but aside from them, yeah.
And in Melbourne in summer, when it gets dark at 9:30 at night,
Jesus.
it's pretty incredible because most people after work, like you can go to the beach and you can have like a full. It's awesome.
We have that in Florida too. I mean, like the time of year that daylight savings like way over favors our summer evening is pretty cool because exactly what you described. You can come home from work or finish work, eat, and then go to the sunset, and you've got it.
Yeah,
I do like that because I'm like, there's like, especially right now, I get home depending 4 or 5, sometimes 5:30, and then like within 2 hours, it's like, oh, it's dark, it's nighttime. It's like my whole day I've spent all day at work, and I don't have time to do anything else. But it's only because there's that, like, the sun has gone away, and it's like, okay, it's the end of the day, and I don't have any time left.
You're teaching. Do you work, bro?
Listen, I can do the job of 30 CEOs because I'm a teacher.
Oh shit.
So, you know what? Why don't you put some respect on my name?
So my question, since I'm gonna go ahead and use you two humans as shorthand for the whole teaching community that I don't know, is because it's the internet and that's what we do. So right. What I'll ask is, I'm intrigued by the awareness the profession has as SaaS sales as a potential way to get into SaaS, but I'm going to go ahead and ask, why on God's earth do you guys not pursue success and adoption teams at SaaS companies, given that like the skill set, like SaaS companies sit there all day being like, we can't figure out how to teach our people how to teach anyone. And teachers are like, I can't figure out how to get into SaaS. If only there was some way. I know, I'm going to make 1 million cold calls and get in. It's like, how? How are you going to suddenly turn into the Karate Kid of cold calls at like 40 when you could just as easily transfer your skill set and do something that like everybody wants to pay you for? Okay, sorry to yell at teachers, but
yeah, I'm offended.
I'm not. You can yell at me. That's fine. If you can sign me up for that, yes, you can yell at me.
So I can only answer for myself, and Sarah might disagree with me, and this is fine. Is that we have such within education, I would say the same thing within like the medical field also, and a couple other careers. You're so insulated to what else is out there. So in my world, up until, within the last 4 months, it was teaching, administration, maybe instructional coach, maybe like a reading specialist, but it's like, education. And then like for my wife, who is a nurse, like she's aware of certain like professions in the medical field, but she has no clue what goes on in like corporate or, startups or nonprofit. So, a lot of those, like whether you would talk about enablement or even in some aspects like account management where you're more like fostering those relationships, or even within, like I talked to Tom and he wants to, when he gets a little bit more established, bring on some people that are capable of teaching and engaging with communities and stuff like that, which is kind of perfect on the teacher skill set. But a lot of it is we're just not aware of those roles that are out there, which is, it's one of the big reasons why I started the whole Empowering Her series, is because when I told my students that we were going to do a career research project, and they had like, many of them, especially the girls, they said, well, I guess I'll be a nurse, because what else can girls do to make money? And I was like, oh my God. I was like, let me introduce you to Amelia. Let me introduce you to Heidi. Let me introduce you to like Asia. Let me introduce you to, like Rosalind. There's so many women out there that are, and we're still at a point to where women are not represented to the point that they need to be within the tech space. But it's not like anybody's gatekeeping the information. There's just not a dissemination of the information.
So two other things. As an external viewer, I also see that, and I always keep talking about the teacher echo chambers, right? Every teacher says like sales or customer success, and I don't even know what instructional design is. And everyone's like, I'm going to be an instructional designer. And I'm like, okay. But when I talk to someone, I'll say, hey, did you explore marketing? Did you explore any other niche, within sales? Or did you explore project management? Not that project management, but actually managing stuff. You could be good at something else like marketing, perhaps. There
is a reason why sales is unique and a little bit special within that list, though, Aamir, which is you can get a degree in marketing. You can get tertiary education in project management, which normally would put you at a disadvantage if you weren't qualified. There's no direct path to sales, right? Sales is just about that skill set, that capability, and that willingness. And that's where I think sales has that unique opportunity to be this venture into corporates as opposed to teaching, as an example, because they're not disadvantaged. If anything, the skills that they've acquired gives them an advantage, whereas marketing is a bit more challenging.
In the presence of the correct mindset. Because like what we were opening with before you got on the call, and this is something that like Josh and Aamir see way more than I have. Like I first heard of this when I messaged Aamir, this teacher that I saw that was like, hey, I'm a teacher, I'm doing this. And I sent it to Aamir and he was like, hard no, like you're an idiot, stay out of this, like you don't want, and like I was like, what? Why is Aamir so like prejudiced against? And what I learned pretty quickly was like, no, like, so it was so funny because I like literally read my interaction with Aamir and was like, I think the guy's being a little stiff here. And then I don't know, minutes later, this teacher, like, first of all, she was a woman, but she like mansplained me how like I was a moron for suggesting X, Y, and Z things to her that were like very real. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were trying to like make any money at this and not be homeless. I was just trying to help you do that. Yeah. By all means, please continue being an expert, But
Eric, let's just remember that across any field, you still get arseholes.
True.
Yeah. We're lucky. We've got like, I like I said a couple of weeks ago, I probably had 300 teachers through my education, and half of them were, I'm not going to use this word because you aren't all in Australia, but we've got a very particular word that starts with the C, which is part of our common vernacular. And half of them met that description, right? Like we're still just talking about the stereotypical, your average teacher, like good human, good person. Yeah. Your interaction might have been with one that was part of that other 150.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, I was bullied by teachers when I was growing up, like no question. I mean, like I had teachers tell me they were bullying me and tell me they're like, feel free to try to do whatever about it. Like there's nothing you can do. Like I have tenure, I'm entrenched, blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, okay, well, we're going to change the playing field here for you a little bit. So like, you like calling the
I'll put it this way. For every Sarah, Elena, and Josh, there are at least 20 others that, I wouldn't want to talk to. And I don't mean it badly. I mean, I would love to help, but if you know everything, help yourself is what I'll say.
I did want to say, I think for me, I started looking at more like the success roles, but I also, and part of this, I don't know if I think I was talking to Aamir. I'm a counselor, a school counselor, but and not a teacher. And so think I told Aamir, I've been doing that for 15 years. And so if I have somebody new who maybe does sales and says, I want to, this is what I want to do, I'm going to be a school counselor. I'm going to say, you're not working with my students. You don't know, you don't know how to do a crisis assessment. So I think for me, I've kind of flipped that back on myself. Instead of expecting like, oh, I can just walk in to this great mid-level job, I'm okay with like learning. I want to learn every piece of it. And I do think that there are other people wanting to do that too. I think there's some who are not, but that I've seen.
But companies are still gatekeeping a lot of those roles. And this speaks more, and it's probably going way off topic for today, but that's what I like to do. The roles of customer success, I feel, are being gated by companies because the SDR model is a little bit broken, right? They need to hire 4 or 5 SDRs, and within a year, they need to promote those SDRs or they're going to leave, but they only have one account executive position to move them into. So they say, well, if you succeed as an SDR, we can move you into revenue operations. We can move you into customer success. We could potentially move you over into marketing. I feel like they're still gating that, Josh. This goes to your earlier question of like, there are other opportunities within sales beyond cold calling. There absolutely is. I think in enterprise America, it's still being gated.
Yeah. And
well, and
yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Well, I was going to say it's fine. As many people, and like I can go back to my Empowering Her, where I've interviewed, when I will officially end season 1, I'm going to end it with Jessie, who's my mentor, my boss, because as Ricky mentioned last time, I get to make her do things to other people. As a ha-ha, but I'll end season 1 with like 75 interviews, which is crazy for a season. But I'm thinking that Eric, you mentioned a couple roles there, and still at this point, those are 2 roles that I hadn't even heard of yet. And I've talked to so many people within, even out of SaaS. So it's, when you mention that, I'm like, and even now I'm like, ooh, that sounds like a cool role. I think I'm going to do that. It's almost like that. We have that very surface level understanding of what other roles look like. And I go back to using the example of recruiting, and I thought I would love, and don't get me wrong, I'd make a great recruiter, but it goes back to going, I think I would love recruiting because I get to just talk to people all day long, and that's all there is, which we know that there's a whole lot more to recruiting than just that. But again, Eric, if there was a way, like, I don't even know how this would happen, but like if there was like a laundry list of all these different roles where like you're talking about that teachers would be good at, or like, let's say an architect wants to leave architecture and get into like, what would I be good at? And I think that's one of the biggest questions when people career changes. How, based on what I'm good at, what can I transition to that would allow me to excel in another role with some training?
Josh, here's a SaaS idea for you. Okay. And as soon as I say that, I know Aamir's ears perk up.
Are you going to call me the C word? I'm okay with it.
No. I realized that we were live this time, and I'm wearing pants, and I'm trying to watch what I say. So, I have this idea of how you can match the skill sets of a teacher with the job that you're going for. Like, I could translate what you do as a teacher and put it into sales speak. Like, you help manage multiple tiers of stakeholders, from your students, the parents, your colleagues, and your senior staff members, and being able to talk on different levels to different levels of stakeholders is a useful skill for an SDR, as an example. And your ability to be forward planned, because you plan a session, you then teach the session, review how that session went, and you make modifications for the next time you do that session, is how we iterate, in an agile way, but in a sales way, how we manage our messaging and our approach. So you could translate a lot of the skill sets that the teacher has, or the activities that they do, into a sales role. You could probably do the same for customer success, like you've spoken about. How do you educate people or identify when they're having challenges and don't want to speak up about it? Like you could literally translate it all. So you put on the teacher on the left, the industries you're interested in, and it explains to you how the things that you do would be like really loved on that side, and that side's been like vetted by professionals in the industry.
I
Like,
feel
wow.
like, Ricky, here's like, okay, I don't know if you've thought about a side hustle for this yet, but based on
No.
what you just
I'm
said,
all out of side hustles. I'm just putting this out into the world, saying,
I
"Hey, somebody help me."
I think
Ricky's
you need to
hustled up.
rewrite teachers' resumes, because what you just said, honestly, no, what you just said with throwing a couple little metrics in there is like, excuse my language, but is badass. Like, honestly.
How dare you, Josh?
So,
No, guys, I'll
you
tell
know,
you all the time. Like, I'll have 100 ideas. Like 99 of them are going to be absolutely shit. One of them might be worthwhile. It's your job to work out which one this is.
Yeah.
Right? But like seriously though, you take all these skills of a teacher and they rarely translate to sales or to customer success or to all these other roles so well when you just articulate it in the right way. And teachers don't, I'm generalizing here, I'm doing what Eric did earlier. Teachers don't have the skill set to do that because they don't have the knowledge of what's wanted or needed on the other side. And we can help do that for them.
I was yelling at Josh when he wanted to be a recruiter. Aamir, what do you think of recruiting? I said, shut it down. You don't need to look at recruiting. You need to do marketing or sales, and just don't go anywhere else, please. And I got this interview. I'm like, don't talk to me about that, please. And Josh is like, glaring at me over our calls. And I'm like, no, man, no, stop that. And to that point, Ricky, it helps if there's someone, neutral who's willing to talk to someone and, find out what skills might be fit for a certain role. For example, me and Sarah were talking, right? And she's got great counseling and, other strengths. And I said, hey, talk to someone where these skills you don't need to do sales, maybe you don't need to do CS, maybe, but other roles, growth roles, or potentially very good counsel people are there in SaaS. And
well, if you want to talk in sales specifically, the account manager role, kind of that blend of, or that old school customer success, because we don't only have to talk SaaS, right? Like there's this whole bloody world beyond SaaS that people have like left to die. Your old account manager role, which was about forming deep relationships with clients, understanding their problems, and essentially help them integrate with your company and use your product and get the success out of it. Like it's a sales role because you're also responsible for upsell, cross-sell, etc. But the skill sets you've just mentioned of Sarah's, wow, like that's what you want from your account manager. You want someone who's extremely empathetic, great communicator, good listener, like they're halfway there.
Well, and now on Sarah, she's a counselor. So what counselors really do is because the way public schools are set up, like she's like
easy job
is and this is very, very unfortunate, is that counselors spend more time in like preparing to set up students taking tests and things like that than what they should be doing. At least where I'm at, they spend more time taking care of like, oh, we got standardized testing, we got to do this, we got to do this, and we have these poor kids that are like in crisis, and so it's very, or we have to split counselors between multiple schools. But Natalie, thank you for joining us, and she's yelling at somebody right now.
Sarah, what would you say about
for like what Josh was saying about the role? You're at a high school, correct, Josh?
No, I'm actually middle school.
You're middle school, okay. So I was high school at one point, and I've slowly moved down from middle school to intermediate. So less counseling, more testing in the past. I think now I have more of that, but because of the pandemic, that role has totally shifted. Just to address all the mental health concerns, at least for my role. So the last couple of years have been.
Hello.
Natalie?
Hello.
I think that was Sarah.
Sarah, is that you? Are you yelling on the...
No, Nat was yelling at someone.
Well,
I'm muting
I
myself.
know. Yeah, there she is. I was like, Natalie, I'm so glad you were just like ripping somebody. That was probably a poor SDR that you were ripping apart. And it was a teacher that had just transitioned into an SDR role. You were like, Jesus Christ, what is wrong with you?
I'm sorry. Sarah, go on. I'm sorry.
No, I'm good. I was just clarifying, I think, kind of what that role is, but it's talking about the path to account manager. Is that what you said, account manager?
Well, and that's what,
What would that path look like?
Well, I mentioned account manager because it's, at least from what I've talked to with other account managers, it almost seems to be like that crossroads between sales, customer success. You got a little bit of renewals, you got a little bit of up, but it's really about making sure that you have that empathetic listening that, we talk about transferable skills or direct skills anyway. That ability to like empathetically listen, understand the needs of the client, and to kind of make sure that they're happy. But the question is, do you need an SDR experience in order to be a good account manager?
Okay, so to that point, think of it. Have you ever read Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain?
No, but I'm going to put it on my list now.
It's a must read for anyone transitioning careers, okay? Because what you'll understand is that you, as a person who hasn't worked in a restaurant, and I, by the way, have worked in kitchens, so I'll vouch for the accuracy of this, is like, he's like, if you want to be the chef, the owner, operator of a restaurant, you need to unclog the sewer. You need to be able to do the dishes. You need to, and it isn't from some sort of like salt of the earth morality. It's just as an operational reality. Like the business of a restaurant is to turn seats over by monetizing food in a reliable timeline. And there are all these unpleasant logistics to making that happen that may not seem super obvious to you. So in my mind, when I see like anyone transitioning to any field, I always apply the following thing, and tying it back to diversifying your audience and your brand, right? It should be, do you have a clear vision of a problem that you solve for a person? Do you understand where those people hang out on the internet? And are you talking to them in a language that makes sense to them rather than scares them the hell away from you as a demographic? And like, that's kind of like a baseline table stakes assessment of it. And when you talk about like transferable skills in business, I can look in my crystal ball and tell you what transfers. You want to know what it is? It's really fascinating. Can you make the company more money today than they made yesterday with you doing the job? If you can, like, I don't give a shit if you're a Martian, if you're 90, whatever, like, come on in. And like, furthermore, is your ability to make that money large enough that I can look past the human flaws that you most certainly have, that are going to show up on a long enough timeline in such a way that I'll have to learn just what is difficult about interacting with you for this piece of my livelihood? And if the answer to that is yes, guess what? Your skills transfer. It's magical. Like, your skills transfer. There it is. Like, I don't give a shit if like you have technical basket weaving or like know how to weave a sail or whatever. Like, can you generate new money that's not illegal every day doing a particular activity with an eye toward doing it better on one day than you did the day before, all other things being equal? If yes, your skills transfer.
Okay. So drug dealers would be great at sales.
Yeah. No, like, seriously, in my mind,
No,
like,
there's demand. That's different, right?
yeah.
Demand gen.
Well, I only laugh at this because Oklahoma went medical marijuana about, I don't know, 3 years ago, 2 years ago or something. And so we are one of the lowest, like the cost to get into the business is like one of the lowest here in Oklahoma. It's $1,500 to get a license. It's about and automatically Ricky has brought more trust to the podcast session because of the dog.
Damn right.
Yeah. So for about $2,000, you are legally able to sell medical cannabis, right? And so you had all these people that were at one point doing it illegally, then cashed in and got a license and are now doing it legally. And so it's like it's kind of, I don't know, kind of brilliant actually.
Sorry to interrupt the podcast here. Nat had a huge bug land on her and had to run away. So
Oh my God, that's terrible.
So,
she survived.
I was
Eric.
saying the bug is in the system. Anyway.
Yeah, no, tell us about it. It's so much more interesting than yelling at teachers for if their skills transfer.
No, Eric, I'm going to go after this call and capture that rant. And I'm going to say, I don't know what I'm going to title it. I'm going to have to give it like a little bit of an edge.
Aggressive
The description,
yelling at
yeah, the description of transferable skills by someone somewhere on the spectrum.
So you know how they say women are female sellers, they're always nice and they have this empathy and they're sweet and they have the ability to be, well, aside of empathetic, I keep saying empathetic, but that's like mainly why they say women are so good in sales. Yeah, some women can be very aggressive, and this rant was a pretty good example of just how equal men and women can be in their in their nature.
Well, Nat, you're right, because like one of the things we haven't really described, and we're talking a little bit about diversification, but maybe it also just applies to diversity in general, is that when we talk about teachers, there's teachers all over the world, and there's different cultures all over the world, different attributes that those teachers need to highlight, and in some cultures, like, I don't know, Greek, Israeli, like often like the woman's the matriarch of the family. They do come with different skill sets, in just from what they've been brought up in. And like if you're a teacher in the UK, you probably have some like good knife defense skills. I'm just like, we are just obviously generalizing, but there is a lot of diversity in teachers' roles, from junior schools, middle schools, intermediate, like we don't even call them that here, but whatever, like, if you're teaching kids or if you're teaching adults or young adults,
So
they all transfer a bit differently.
Are you guys not doing active shooter drills in your schools?
No, we are.
Okay.
No, we're not. I think some private schools, actually, probably like not to the point of active shooter drills. Maybe a bit more like fire drills and evacuation drills and here and there.
I was talking to my friend in Sweden the other day, and I go, yeah, we have this week we have tornado drills, we have fire drills, we have like what we call them unwanted guests, which means that there's somebody that shouldn't be in the building, and then we have a shooter drill, and she said, what is a shooter drill? I go, well, that's when we like practice prepping if somebody comes in and starts like opening fire in the middle of the school. And she's like, what, where are you teaching that, like, you have to do that? I go, America, because
And I just want to throw in, as a former security and safety professional, that would be brilliant if the shooter wasn't one of the people being given the training. Then it would be a brilliant safety measure, like absolutely.
Well, no, but it's one of the things that's not even discussed, because there's this, and this is totally off topic, where they talk about let's give teachers guns, and I'm trying to think in what scenario, if a student of mine, even if they were opening fire, where I would not hesitate, because here's a student I've built up a whole relationship with that I care about, and am I going to unhesitatingly be able to? No, absolutely not. So let me just remove myself from that situation. This is like turned into kind of like
but are you taught to de-escalate the situation too? I mean, aside of just like fire back, there's like levels of opportunities in between, right? Like to try to.
Well,
Josh.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion. So, like, I'm a qualified firearms instructor here in Australia as well, but maybe we should segue this conversation to, like, these are some of the challenges that teachers have to deal with And how does that translate to
Diverse,
corporate?
transferable skill.
Yeah, like
We can
no,
all
but
agree we don't want to be shot at work.
but genuinely, if this is what teachers are having to deal with,
So
and
is
I'm
this-
thinking like I'm telling teachers, hey, listen, now in your new job, you need to be active on LinkedIn. Like the level of resilience, the level of like stakeholder management, where they're trying to educate parents and children on the need for these things, when I'm sure a lot of these teachers also have personal beliefs which they can't really let out because now you've got an established system. Like, to me, there's still just a lot of merit in, like, if this is what teachers have had to deal with, first of all, fuck, like, why are you doing that? Like, come get a job where there isn't a high risk of being shot. But broadly, those skills are just amazing, like genuinely amazing. I think it just further highlights why teachers would make such incredible staff in the corporate world.
Is this like if I'm cold calling as an SDR, I'm like, listen, I have firearms training. If you don't accept the demo for the AE, look, I'm not saying anything. I'm just, oh, hey, Sarah, I wanted to let you know, and I'm so glad you're here because I feel like this is very important. I just want to let you know that my students completed a writing project in my class. And so
Okay.
I will be taking a job as a lead senior project manager.
Oh,
That is, I expect nothing less, as you should, by the way. We're on the same page. Great. So I hear you saying, though, did Eric say I could add that emergency training that's a transferable skill? I can add that to my resume? Is that what I'm hearing? I just want to be sure. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. So again, maybe that project management, that same job I should be applying for. Okay. We're good.
Let's Sarah, we were talking about diversifying your brand. I mean, I know you've been taking a couple of new programs, posting daily. I saw yesterday's post where you wanted to be more consistent with your posting. Are you active on other spaces? I know you're on Twitter as well, right?
Yep, I'm on Twitter as well.
So
I've dabbled
share
in TikTok, but I have not been consistent at all.
Do you guys know what a content compass is?
Yeah, Sarah, I think you'd be perfect on TikTok.
Oh, thanks.
But I don't know what a contact compass is, and it sounds
I don't
interesting.
either.
It's content. So like if you take HubSpot's inbound marketing and just like general marketing stuff, which I highly recommend if you're like trying to be in SaaS especially, like what it tells you about is just the thing you'll see LinkedIn influencers post about once in a while, which is that if you're playing the game by opening up the platform and then starting to write, you've already lost the game. And speaking to the idea of diversifying from more than one platform, the content that you write should be categorized by who the intended audience is, what the intended outcome is, and absolutely, yes, where the intended platform is, down to even like when you intend to share it. And you should just have that stuff somewhere like a Google Drive that's not on a particular platform, and then you ship to the platform when you're ready to go live with it. But that'll save you from the nightmare of ever, like, if you do get deplatformed somewhere, if you do get signed out of something, or if a particular platform changes the fundamentals of how it engages with an audience, you don't lose your momentum in that intangible asset that you're building with your brand. So the idea just being like, challenge yourself to write where you're picturing a particular person with a particular problem that you're speaking to about solving their problem. And if you're really doing it right, you're telling a human story of why solving that problem is part of the mission for that person and for you as a member of their community. And if you're doing all of those things, then you should be able to put iterations of that content to like 3 or more platforms a day without any kind of like undue effort, just because you have it in this one place and you have that strategy. That's what a company is doing, you know?
So I see a few people doing that, right? Mark Young is doing that with, those Twitter clippings and getting great engagement on LinkedIn. I see others do that as well. Eddie was doing that as well. Twitter post and pasting the same thing, or images in LinkedIn, and that's getting engagement. Some of our other friends, Todd and Will, doing TikTok and pasting those same videos, sharing those same videos on LinkedIn, and which totally works. So it's multiple platforms for sure.
It's funny you mentioned Eddie because this time last week, Eddie, I about lost my mind when Eddie posted that picture of Julie on there with the crown, and Sarah Hanks over there. She was gracious enough to give me a crown. And so,
You need to step up your Canva game, Josh. You can have whatever you want. A crown.
well,
Seriously.
I need to because I look at over at BDEX, I'm doing the social posting, and I don't want I can't wait till June, and I hate to say this, I can't wait till June when I'm not like interning and teaching and to where I can actually focus on Canva, because I look at some designs and I'm like, bet I'm about to rock this Canva and make some sweet designs, and I'm like,
Is that instructional design?
no,
Instigator.
yeah, no, I've created lesson plans, so
Eric, you really made me happy today with what you said. I mean, I still am embarrassed, and but we all try, and I think Ricky is one of the best secret motivators. He talks to people one on one and always goes, "How can I help you, man? What can I do for you?"
Although, to be honest, I've stopped that just before anyone thinks of messaging me. No, I'm joking. I haven't stopped that. I came to the realization after doing that enough times that it's not helpful saying to people, "How can I help you?"
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, they don't take me up on it.
Or they
So
don't
now
know.
what I've started saying is, this is how I think I can help you. If any of those sound interesting, let me know. Or if you have another idea, that's fine too. But at least they've got like this multiple choice ABC, and they can see the level of effort I'm willing to go to. So maybe they'll be more inclined to ask.
I am making a
Does that
post
mean
on
you're not going to help me,
LinkedIn
Ricky?
right
Sorry.
now that says,
No,
call Ricky.
Don't message Ricky. I just wanted to shout you out, Ricky, that the specific thing you do for me as like a peer mentor is if we're working on stuff long term, like for me, it's Slack first sales, and I check in with you and I realize that 2 weeks have gone by and I haven't moved the needle significantly, it would be the easiest thing in the world for accountability to collapse into shame and avoidance in that situation. And what you will always do is know why it's that way, and like in the kindest way possible, not give me any shit about it, and just be like, "Oh, hey, I'm behind too." And then I'm like, "Oh man, if Ricky found a way to behind, then like I'm not screwing up, And so like there are all these levels to it that are so nuanced that I really appreciate about you.
For LinkedIn, by the way, Ricky is one of the smartest people I know.
hey guys,
I'm
this
putting it
is
out
not
there.
the point of this conversation. How did this?
He knows project management. He knows ClickUp. He knows everything about sales. Just putting it out there. He's very modest, but I would love to share Ricky across with so many people, and all the teachers. Just connect with Ricky as well.
Well, I feel like we need 2 more people in here. We could be the Brady Bunch, and then Ricky's in the middle, kind of like the house
He's Alice.
that was like keeping everything together and making it function. So Ricky is like Alice on the Brady Bunch that enables people to stay together and function as a family unit. You should be a guidance
You see-
counselor, Ricky.
Now, I've always thought, I know, well, by having SDRs, you do by default become a guidance counselor, right? Because you've got a bunch of people that don't really know what they want to be doing and are somewhere between like success and frustration. But I've always thought of Aamir as that person, like someone that just really helps to keep people together and bring people closer to a group. In fact, I think if everyone here on the call works back how we are connected, I bet you we're all through Aamir.
Yep. Because he's the super node. And that's one of the things we covered before you got on the phone is I went ahead and made Aamir super uncomfortable and called him out directly for the magnitude of all the help he gives people. And I know he hates every second of it because we've all got our cross to bear, and for Aamir, it's that he cannot receive praise or compliments. He hates it. Like
I believe that.
But like, I don't know. I think that like we've all lived long enough to know that like who knows how long you're going to be on the planet for, or someone else is, and like take the opportunity to say like, thank you, Aamir.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Aamir.
bud.
Thank you, Aamir.
I appreciate and love all of you. So,
Yeah.
I'm
So
there for all of you.
so if you are a transitioning teacher and you need somebody to connect with, Aamir.
But only
see
if
what I
you're
meant is-
not willing to start at the bottom, whatever that means.
Yeah. You have to. In fact, I encourage you all to connect with Natalie and let her know that you will not be accepting an SDR role, and you need to be the national account executive right off the bat. And Natalie would be like, "That's great. Come on in. I have a spot for you."
Okay, I have to grab that for a second, and I know Ricky's going to laugh at this too. If you've been around long enough, B2B sales, you know that there are SDRs sitting in a company that literally take more money home than anyone in the whole company. And you look at their vibe, and they're just like chill, heads down, doing whatever. And you'll also be around long enough to watch them pass up promotion after promotion. And like the one guy I'm picturing who's like the archetype for this, like, I remember when they came and tried to publicly promote him, like, went into a boiler room and were like, "Hey, Jay, we want to put you up ahead of all these people." And he goes, "What the hell did I do to you? Let me get back to doing my, like, calls, And it's because, like, he's got this little notebook that counts down the dollars and closed sales to the day that he can retire based on his investment plan. And that's all the guy gives a shit about. And, like, if he were to hear you saying, like, "Oh, I want to make sure I can become an AE or a VP of sales," he'd be like, "Great, you'll hang out in the parking lot with the other ones that are homeless trying to get there, and like I've got everything taken care of." Like, it just cracks me up when people don't realize that like a well-positioned SDR might be the single most profitable and or stable income stream in a particular business, especially if it has product market fit. And they'll be like, "Oh, I want to like use that as a stepping stone to somewhere else." It's like, you're out of your mind.
Well, that's what I was looking on. It's funny you mentioned that because I was looking on RepView the other day with just like the enterprise SDRs, and like their take-home pay was like blowing some, whether like VPs of sales and AEs out of the water. Some of the low, and I was just like,
Yeah, you know
and
why?
there's still exceptions. Like
Yeah.
if there the exception there is that they often promote people up to account executive when they get better. But if you were willing to stay in that role and be successful and just say, I'm happy doing these cold calls and I'm happy doing it all day. All I want to now do is be measured maybe against revenue as opposed to against meetings.
Yeah.
Like that income can genuinely climb. And it is, I saw a job posted this week for 100,000 base pay and 100,000 on target earning on top of that. So a $200,000 package for an SDR. And whilst it's probably the highest I've seen in a while or ever, it's not at all surprising.
Yep.
Like, it's genuinely not at all surprising.
There are SDRs out there that are $300K a year all day long on their W-2. It's not lies. It's not phishing stories. Like, they exist, and they're not constantly posting in some social platform about it or offering you a course on how to do it because they're busy just happily living their life, making a hell of a lot of money. In fact, they'll do you one better. Ask yourself why these people that are offering you a course on how to make X amount of money in X, Y, and Z role are sitting there selling you that course instead of making that money in that role.
It's funny you mentioned that because I'm thinking of I don't know how to pronounce. I don't remember his last name, but it's Ian. It starts with a K,
Cody.
and like he has posted several times where, he said in the SDR role you can make a ton of money, and he started talking about how you can get close to that 7-figure. In fact, he's had several years where he did make 7 figures, and people were like, "BS, this is not true." And so he showed his W-2. And the only reason why he even created like a course is because he was getting hounded so much by people that were like, "I want to make 7 figures. How did you do it?" That he was finally like, "All right, fine. I'll make a course for you. That's fine."
Well, and Ian's one of the few that's the real deal and can back up what he's saying.
Well, and he had a ton of content on his YouTube channel for absolutely free, and it's still there. Where, yeah.
But it's no guarantee that everyone can, right? It's all about that attitude and the aptitude to do well in your field of work.
Yeah.
So,
It's all about discipline.
Yeah.
We'll end the live. We're staying on. Josh, who's for the last words today?
Let's go with Eric.
Oh God. So diversify your brand. Don't be stuck on one platform. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, and stop worrying about how many followers and likes you have, and worry about like how much of an impact are you making in the lives of the people you're interacting with, and what is the meaning of that story together. And hopefully people that aren't you would be telling a similar story to the story you want told about it. And if none of that's true, then like start changing some things.
I think that's beautiful. So I'd like to thank everybody that's on here. Eric, Aamir, Sarah, Ricky, and Natalie. I appreciate you guys and ladies all being on here today. And please join us every Saturday when we have SaaSy Saturday Live, where we discuss different topics. And I love everybody.